friend Blair Towley, who is a clinically trained herbalist. Is that correct? Is that how you?
Yes, a clinical herbalist, yeah.
Herbalist with her business, Wild Craft Herbs. Blair's helped me out a lot with my own health. Great tips that I've used that have really changed my energy level. And I wanted to have her on today to talk about sleep. I know people right now especially are struggling with their sleep, and it's very important to get sleep for beauty rest. Our skin like repairs, restores itself. So I just want to dive right in, Blair. What kind of interests you in the subject of sleep to begin with? And what are some of your favorite kind of top? I know you have this amazing blog too that I'm going to cite below your tips.
Yeah, so I got into sleep for probably a couple different reasons. One was throughout my life, I'd had some health issues stemming from like pretty early childhood. So a lot of like constitutional deficiencies, things like that. And, you know, I was always a pretty good sleeper as a kid. I wasn't staying up late. And I think part of it was because my body was like not super healthy. But as I got older, I got a little bit more, you know, busy, and sleep became less important, you know, college and early 20s, that kind of thing. I started probably pushing it on sleep. And then some of, you know, additional health issues came up in my early 20s. I finally got diagnosed with Crohn's disease and started to learn a ton of things about autoimmunity. And one of the big things for autoimmune disease and keeping those in check or even into remission is sleep. And so that's kind of when I became a little bit more obsessed with sleep. And then I would say what really took me over the edge is when I started to track my sleep. And we can talk about how I've tracked my sleep over the past, I think, 5 years. And so that was really motivating to see incremental improvement as I would track my sleep, black and white data in the morning. And so, you know, that's super motivating versus like thinking, I think I got good sleep, but I'm not sure. I'm, you know, so it's cool to have that platform, especially if you are implementing improvements, and then you can kind of see, you know, objectively how you're doing, you know, are you even getting enough total hours, that kind of thing.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's jump in. I want to get some of your tips because I know they've helped me a lot too, and I use a few of them religiously.
Oh, good. Yeah, so I'm glad to hear that. And I would love to know which ones you use religiously once we're done. It would be cool to see which ones stuck with you. But basically, I would say the first one that I really think is huge is having the same sleep-wake schedule every day, and that's 7 days a week. So a lot of times people think, oh, that's 5 days a week, and then weekends are different. But however, our body, our genes, our cells don't recognize, you know, days of the week necessarily. And so if you are, for example, staying up 2 hours later on Saturday night and Sunday night, that actually translates to almost like a jet lag effect in the body. And while that doesn't seem like that many hours difference, it actually really does impact all of your circadian rhythms the next day, all of your hormonal cascades, and it will take you for every hour that you push your sleep. Later, it will take you 1 day to fully recover from that. So like, let's say you have a blowout night and go to bed 4 hours later, and then the next night you're right back on it, back to good bedtime. It will still take your body 4 whole days to fully recover at, you know, a hormonal level and metabolic level to get back on track. So I think it's really important for people to also check in and say, is my sleep schedule because of my work schedule or my kids' schedule or my cat's schedule? You would be surprised at what my clients put before their own health is, you know, sometimes smallish things. And so, you know, the best quiz is kind of like, when would you go to bed and wake up if you were on a desert island alone and you had no plans the next day and, you know, no one to bother you or dictate anything? You know, when would your body feel sleepy? And when would your body wake up naturally. And that really is probably your genetically predispositioned circadian rhythm. And they call that chronotype. So some people are morning people, where they're just like immediately awake in the morning. I would say I'm in that camp. And then some people are night owls. And really that is just ingrained in them. And so checking in and seeing, you know, are you really a night owl? Then maybe talk to your boss about coming in a few hours later, or, you know, figuring out how you can respect your body's, you know, genetic predisposition, because this really can shorten lifespans for people, really impact chronic disease, if they are pushing themselves out of their natural circadian balance.
Okay. And then I love this blog you have, the Optimize Your Sleep Quarters. These are some of the things I do that you've taught me. But I want to hear from you first. I'll tell you which ones I do.
Sure. Yeah, so optimized sleeping quarters is just the idea of making your bedroom an oasis, and also kind of like optimized for sleep specifically. So what does that look like? It looks like making sure it's cool enough. This is one, it's like the, you know, middle of summer as we're recording this. And so we're all kind of like, you know, bowing down to our AC units if we have them. So, you know, installing air conditioning. My partner just installed air conditioning in his bedroom after many years in Hawaii, and it's been life-changing. You know, or using a chili pad, which is a chilled mattress pad. So that's more energy efficient than an air conditioning. I sometimes use both even. So chili pad's a really great one.
Where do you get those?
Chili pad, I think it's chilipad.com. I think I have an affiliate link with them. I can't even remember. If I do, I'll put it in the bottom. They're great. I have a lot of clients that have purchased them after, you know, I've had one for many years and it's been huge. So, you know, if you're renting, you can't put air conditioning in, chili pad is a great choice. You know, and then you can move with it, right?
Yeah.
The other big thing is light. So a lot of people sleep with, you know, maybe their curtains open, maybe the windows are closed, but the curtains are still open. So blackout curtains are a really easy and big impact item. Even street lights, ambient street light, can impact melatonin release, which is a huge issue for some people, especially if you have any sort of disease state or insomnia, you know, those kinds of things. You really want almost like a complete blackout room, like a cave. Like you don't want to be able, there's like a test where if you can't see your hand in front of your face at this, you know, 5 or 6 inches, whatever, then that's good. So that's really, really dark. But you know, do what you can. But the blackout curtains in my room, those are from Target. They're very affordable. And they now come in white. Used to be blackout curtains were like dark and kind of dingy. But now, you know, you can get blackout curtains that are super cute. You know, Target is pretty affordable. And that, again, you can move with those. So if you're renting, that's a really nice thing that you can move with and use again and again.
Cool. And then what about the eye?
Oh yeah, eye mask. So an eye mask is kind of a compromise if you you know, can't do the blackout curtains, or even in addition to. Sometimes I'll use both because I, you know, go for it with sleep. But yeah, I like the eye mask that it's called Manta Sleep Mask, and it has like I call it my donut mask. So it's like these little donuts that allow your eyes to have space. It doesn't crush your eyes. So I've had all types of sleep masks, and that one is really one of my favorites because it has, you know, the kind of the concave shape to it. Yeah, and that one is great too. You can travel with that. You can wear it on the plane, you know. And do you use a sleep mask?
I do. That's one of the things I got from you, was about having the dark.
Yeah.
And I can't sleep without it now.
Yeah, it really does make a huge difference. Also, what I've noticed too is, you know, we can talk about how at the beginning of the night is when you mostly get deep sleep. And then at the towards the end of the night, early morning hours, that's when we get REM sleep. And so sometimes people's REM sleep can be kind of blunted, cut short, because the sun starts steeping in, even around the blackout curtains. You know, sometimes they're not perfect. And for me, I'm so light sensitive that it will wake me up maybe even an hour or so, half an hour before my body really, wants to wake up. And so that really impacts my amount of REM sleep. So I find with people that wear sleep masks, very often get more REM sleep because they're able to sleep in just a little bit longer and not get interrupted by light.
Yeah, definitely helps me too. What about sounds?
Yeah, so the sound thing is very personal. Some people really hate white noise. Some people love it and can't sleep without it. Some people, don't hear a siren. The thing that I have found with the noise is that for me, I like to have a little bit of white noise. I use my air conditioning as my white noise essentially. But keep in mind, I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize maybe how much they're waking up because of sounds. A lot of times that, like, the neighbor's dogs, for example, like continually woke up my partner, for years. I think he probably lost, thousands of hours of REM sleep because it was always early morning. And now that he has the air conditioning, he can shut all the windows. And he has an Aura ring too, which is what I use to track my sleep now. And we can talk about how that works. But his Aura ring is now showing much better REM sleep because he's able to actually sleep past, the crack of dawn when the dog starts barking at something.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how these little things can really impact us, this little sound that, a lot of times I don't think he even realized the dog woke him up, because you're in that in-between state. Yeah. So yeah, that's a personal one, but I think that's important to think about.
Definitely. And then you also talk about magnesium.
Yeah, so magnesium is a nice one. Hello.
Sorry to interrupt.
Taping this.
Sorry, is to the camera. I'm about to do an interview.
Hold on one second. I'm just gonna pause.
Sorry, Blair.
Okay, so other thing I'm interested to learn about from you is how magnesium affects sleep.
Yeah, so magnesium is an important aspect as well because a lot of our foods are now kind of mineral deficient. This comes from poor farming practices over the last, I guess almost, 80 years or so. We've really depleted our soils. And so what used to be very magnesium rich and other mineral rich foods are now not so. And so now we often have to supplement with magnesium in different ways. And so some people like the Calm powder. I've used that before, or just regular old capsules. I also, in my practice, have a formula called Mineral Balm, and that is a bunch of mineral-rich herbs that are all tinctured, almost like a concentrated tea. I have an example. So it looks like that, and you would just take that once a day. And there's also a tea called Mineral Balm. And so, again, these have very high magnesium, high mineral-rich herbs, nettle, alfalfa, oat straw, things like that, that raspberry leaf, really nice tasting tea and tincture. And so, getting those deep leafy greens, organic, if possible, and making sure that you get those every day. But really, unfortunately, supplementing with magnesium is almost essential now because it's hard to get it just through food, which hurts my heart to say. But yeah, it's something to consider if sleep is an issue or you want to just dial it in even more. Consider using Calm or a Mineral Balm or something like that where you are just upping your magnesium because it really is a cofactor in so many biological processes in the body, not just for around sleep, but like many, many things. So that one is kind of a good tip for just general well-being as well.
Okay. And do you recommend to take it at night or does it matter when you take the magnesium?
So they used to say take it at night, but then now they're seeing research that shows actually the magnesium spike happens kind of midday. And we're always learning things about our biology. It's endlessly complex. And so, just being able to roll with it and say, okay, now we know better. And so now we're taking it midday. So I think I've heard some people take it at both times of the day, morning and evening. I tend to do it midday now, but I don't think it would necessarily be the worst if you only remembered at night.
Right. Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Oh, here, anxiety. Ooh.
Yeah, so anxiety is an interesting one because a lot of insomnia is really around anxiety. And so, if you can't sleep and especially if it's an insomnia where you're waking up in the middle of the night and not so much where you can't fall asleep initially, but it's like the middle of the night wake ups where you can't get back to sleep. Oftentimes we might look to, circular thoughts and, doom and gloom thinking, that kind of thing. And so, of course, you can do something right then. You could take, an anti-anxiety tincture, that kind of thing. But ideally, what you want to do is when you implement things during the day. And so what that might look like is introducing a meditation practice into your life. You introduced me to Vedic meditation, which is like really amazing. So I love that one. It's a mantra-based meditation. And then, also implementing herbs that are anti-anxiety during the day. So that way, like, it's hard for the nervous system to go from, 60 to 0, right? Like, we all know that doesn't really happen very often. And we often expect that of ourselves when we go to sleep. And so if you're, really hyped up during the day, like, why wouldn't you be hyped up in the middle of the night unless you're really working on these things? And so I would say weaving in some practices where you're dealing with anxiety, maybe even seeing a therapist, exploring EMDR if you have PTSD or other trauma. And yeah, some of the herbs that, for example, like skullcap, vervain, oat straw, milky oats, chamomile, these can all be taken throughout the day so that instead of like buzzing up here and then hoping for this crash, you're more like, at an even keel. And when you go to bed, you just have a slight dip because you're, relaxed and sleeping. So that's really where you want to be. Now, will you get there in like a week? Probably not. So have compassion with, dealing with that process and just be curious, is this an anxiety exacerbated issue, or did my neighbors just slam the door and that's why I'm up in the middle of the night? Just trying to tease out like why are you waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to go back to bed.
And where can someone get those kind of anxiety herbs that you were mentioning?
Yeah, so my website, wildcraftherbs.com, has it, and that's WILDKRAFT herbs.com. So I sell herbs that are for anxiety. It's called Mellow Mind is one formula that I like. And then they're also available, at a lot of like Whole Foods and Down to Earth for Hawaii people. But you really want to make sure that you do a little bit of research before starting any herbal protocol. Herbs play well with other herbs, but herbs don't necessarily play well with pharmaceuticals. So whenever anyone is, interested in taking something, it's always good to do a quick Google or talk to your community herbalist. We are here. We are more than excited to, help answer questions, or even in my case, make a totally custom formula based around anxiety or any other issues that, you'd like to also address.
Yeah, you've made some for me that I really liked, the custom formulas. Are you seeing a lot of rise of anxiety right now with people?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it's been an interesting time. I think a lot of people are wanting to work on, health and anxiety, but also not necessarily having the bandwidth or the extra money to do so. So it's this like weird in between moment, I feel like, where people are highly aware of it, but maybe don't have.
Oops, it froze. I don't know if you can hear me, it froze. Okay. So do you have any herbs for anxiety?
Yeah, so, the ones I mentioned before that were like chamomile, catnip, those types of things, like those are really lovely. They're called nervines. So that's a whole class of herbs that help calm the nervous system. So you can take a singular herb, meaning a simple of an herb. So like you would just take catnip, for example. And that calms humans just as it like excites cats. So it's like kind of an opposite effect. And chamomile, right? We've all had chamomile and, felt a little bit more relaxed. So you can do a singular herb, or you can do a formula. And a formula combines, 2 or more herbs together And oftentimes herbs have a really nice kind of entourage effect. All the constituents can kind of like help each other out, balance the formula, make things more body friendly. Sometimes one herb is like very cold or jarring, and so you can add other warming herbs to make it nice. So for example, I have a formula that's specifically for stress relief called Mellow Mind. So this is a nice formula. It has 4 different herbs in it, and they're all in alcohol and water tinctured. And so this formula has Tulsi basil, so that's holy basil. So that is an adaptogen as well as a nervine. Also catnip that I mentioned. Skullcap is a really nice herb also, and then vervain. So those 4 are in here. So you could even, in theory, take a higher dose of this and then have it, before bed, or you could take, a more moderate dose and then use that during the day to, deal with stressful traffic or an acute event. I find that it's nice to have on hand, like a formula like this, maybe in your car or your purse. Yeah. I definitely travel with it. Sometimes if there's like a lot of turbulence on a plane, I might take it, or if I'm feeling nervous about something. So yeah, they definitely can come in handy. And then in reference to sleep, I find my clients with insomnia or sleep issues, I definitely typically have them take a nervine formula like Mellow Mind throughout the day, and then they might switch to a more sedative formula. So I brought this out because I thought we might talk about sleep herbs on this, is Deep Z's. So Deep Z's is similarly like a nervine formula, it calms the nervous system, but you would even go so far as to say that it's more of a sedative formula. So some of these are similar to Mellow Mind. They like vervain is in there, and oh no, that's valerian, sorry, not vervain, but skullcap is in here. And then I also put California poppy, passion flower. These are all things that are calming, but even more so than, for example, catnip, chamomile. Those are more
something you would take right before bed, like you just...
Yeah, usually probably half an hour before bed. I would take a dose, and dosing is very specific for each individual. So you might require, let's say 1 dropper full, which is 30 drops of a formula before bed, but somebody else might require 2 or 3 dropper fulls. Just very much depends on how quickly you metabolize things, your constitution, that kind of stuff. So you would take your dose that you figured out works for you about half an hour before bed. And then if you wake up in the middle of the night, this might be something that you also take again in the middle of the night. If you're having a hard time falling back asleep, just make sure to swish with water afterwards, because you don't want it sitting on your teeth.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What is EMF? And
EMF. Okay, so in regards to sleep, EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, and so EMF is kind of a hot button item right now, as we are all bathed in EMF frequencies now more than ever in the history of the planet. And so and really, there are EMFs that are native EMFs. So there's a big difference between native EMF, which is like the Earth's resonant frequency, or frequencies that exist in nature, and then non-native EMF. And so non-native EMF is man-made EMF. And so these are the EMFs that we are concerned about. And so, there are a lot of studies that go even back to, Soviet era Russia, that, we're starting to question, are these wavelengths safe? Is this important to shield against, et cetera.
Right.
And so I am a big fan of the precautionary principle, meaning, we should be precautious until we know for sure that things are safe. And because of the speed at which we've, increased our technology, especially in our own bedrooms. Look, I'm talking to you from my own bedroom I have my computer set up right here. But what I do is I take precautions because of the precautionary principle. So I actually have my whole setup on a power strip. And so at night I hit one button. It's actually this like little remote I have. Let me show it to you really quick. So it's called Zap, but I got it on Amazon. And so you plug in, you can have up to 5 things plugged in to the Zap. and you just hit a button and it turns on or off. So you can see my light in the back that went off and on.
Yeah.
Cool, right? So I can do, if I were to hit the 5, it would turn my whole setup off and you would go away. And so I do this right before bed. I turn off all my lights. So I have 4 lights in my room. I turn 1, 2, 3, 4 off. And then the last thing I do is turn off my computer setup so that I don't have, you know, the all the electricity running through all the electronics. I am an overachiever, and so when I built my house, I did Ethernet instead of a Wi-Fi router. So my stuff is actually hardwired in. So throughout the house, we have everything hardwired. So that's an option if you're doing a new build. To retrofit it into an existing house is quite expensive, so it's probably not practical. So for the general public, what I would recommend is doing a Wi-Fi router on a timer or on a remote. So if you go to bed at the same time every night, which I hope you do, you could do the timer method. So set it for like an hour after you go to bed or half an hour after you go to bed to allot for, you know, a little bit of shift. And so it would just turn off the Wi-Fi router at night. And then in the morning, maybe set it for like half an hour before you wake up, you know, 15 minutes, whatever it is, and then it'll come back on. And so when you're awake, it's on. So you're not, you know, worried about it.
Right.
And then at night, it, you know, it's off. And then the other option is to just
what
have
have
it
you
up.
found about it affecting sleep?
Yeah. So in terms of sleep, you know, the body, they've found that like, it's really helpful to have as much of a neutral environment at night as possible. And so that means, you know, like not a lot of, you know, sound, not a lot of light, and not a lot of like stimulus. And so even though we can't overtly feel it, although some people say they can, I'm not one of those people, but some people say they can feel when they're in a high EMF environment. Oftentimes, you know, our nervous systems can react to things that we aren't even conscious of. So I do it from a standpoint of, you know, how can I best recreate like the cave environment that we like evolved in, or the jungle, you know, like where we were in our safe hut, no EMFs around except from the earth. And so that's sort of why I included it in the sleep log. I've found that clients that were having issues falling asleep, staying asleep, or just quality of life around sleep, when they've implemented just even like the timer thing, they like got back to me and they were like, I thought you were crazy, but I'm actually sleeping in. And like they hadn't slept in. Their body would wake up at like 4:30 and they're just like, oh, why, you know? And so I was like, you know, but like, for example, the one client, his Wi-Fi router was like 4 feet from the bed. So I was like, look, just try this. I know, you know, like we don't know exactly what's going on in the body, but like, why not, right? So he started turning it off. And for the first time, he slept till like 8 a.m. And he couldn't believe it for the first time in many years. So, you know, I've heard these things over and over from people, and children as well. You know, their bodies are more sensitive. So I would say it's important to, you know, do this little step, because why not?
Yeah, it makes sense too, because if you're disconnecting from work and all these other things, you know, like you don't have Wi-Fi, can't or whatever. So that makes sense.
And oftentimes people, you know, claim that the best sleep they've gotten is when they go camping. They're super off grid, you know, and I think a lot of that is the light atmosphere, which we haven't talked too much about yet. But I think the other aspect is just the EMF, and, you know, their body can kind of just breathe a sigh of relief probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to go into lighting? Do you want home goods?
Let's just talk about lighting real quick. So lighting is another aspect that I've really evolved on, I would say, over the past few years, because, you know, we retrofitted our house, I don't know, like 8 years ago with LEDs to be environmentally, you know, aware. We had solar panels, and then we did LED lights. And unfortunately, my like deep research on this shows that like LED lights are not ideal from a biological perspective. And what is more ideal, well, the most ideal is candlelight. So like, if you really want to go for it, go, you know, light your house with candles. There are a few people that do this, not just the Amish. And so, you know, I've played with the idea, but not everybody is excited about a candlelit home. And so then one step above the candlelit home is using incandescent bulbs. So I use incandescent bulbs, which I know is almost heresy among our friend group and also among, you know, environmentalists and others. And so I'm very aware of their use. And so my house also luckily has solar panels, so I actually am not pulling from petroleum. But even if you don't have solar panels, I would recommend these things again, because I'm able to turn on and off lights very easily and not leave them on all night, you know, or even during the evening. I just spot use lights. And so why LEDs are so difficult for our body to deal with, especially in the evening, is that they have high blue and purple wavelength in them. If you look at, you know, the breakdown of the spectrums, you know, incandescent is sort of this wave, and then LEDs are like kind of here, and then they like spikes in the blue and purple. And so this is very difficult for our eyes to deal with. We usually don't experience that spectrum ever. It's kind of like the non-native EMF. It's a non-native, you know, lighting, alien light source. And so we kind of expect our bodies to just like evolve as quickly as technology. And wouldn't that be lovely? But we're not quite there yet. So there are a couple other ways to deal with this. So like, let's say you live somewhere where you can't change the lighting. You can use, you know, blue blocking glasses, which I should be wearing right now, looking at a monitor actually. So you can wear blue blocking glasses. These do help. I don't know that they are the perfect solution, but it's definitely an option. And, you know, let me further explain just a little bit like why the blue and purple is so bad. So blue wavelength, purple wavelength, those exist in nature at the highest levels midday. So when you're outside and you're getting full spectrum sunlight, which is important during the day, midday, you'll have a lot of, you know, blue and purple. It's very bright, right? It's not the warm tones of like sunrise and sunset. So that's like a trigger for your body to say, it's midday. Let's release all the hormone cascades that relate to energy, you know, metabolism, you know, being fully awake for many, many more hours, right? Midday, you have like 8 more hours to go before bed.
Right.
So when we experience that same spectral signature at night, why wouldn't our bodies do the same thing? We're very trained to say, oh, look, it's daylight again. You know, our bodies don't just go, oh, it hasn't been 24 hours yet. That must be a mistake. They go, oh, look, it's time to wake up. And so a lot of people, again, expect their body to immediately fall asleep after we've looked at blue lit screens, blue lit phones, blue lit houses. And your body's thinking it's probably noon. And so it's really a lot to ask of ourselves. And so I use incandescents that are very warmly lit. I think they're 2200 K, which is like on the warm spectrum. Some of like the really bright, like daylight light bulbs are 5000 K, for example. So the higher the number, the more like blue it has. I would say the worst are like the fluorescent lit homes that are like really bright and like blue, like you can tell it's like a surgical theater in there. And, you know, I wonder how people really are sleeping. And so, yeah, I would just say, consider the lighting, go as low as you possibly can, in terms of, you know, task lighting, great, do your task, turn it off. Like having the house fully lit at night, really there's no benefit. You'll save money on electricity and you'll probably sleep better. And then, you know, just have one light next to your bed on and make sure it's really warm and really dim. You know, dimmer, some people love dimmer switches. You can dim everything at night. That's one option. So I think that it's really important to consider lighting, because in fact, I sometimes will schedule herbal consults pre-COVID in the evening. And so the sun will set and then we'll look at the lighting in the home and talk about, you know, how is this impacting them? You know, the bathroom lighting also is a big one. You know, you go to brush your teeth and you flip on the bathroom light and it's really bright. Like that's not a good idea. So I actually have a salt lamp in my bathroom. And so the salt lamp's just enough for me to see, you know, my toothbrush, my toothpaste, floss, I can like find everything.
Right.
I'm not doing any detail oriented makeup or anything at that point. So the salt lamp is a really perfect choice for me. And then that just stays on all the time, so it doesn't melt. So I don't even think about it. It just is on. It's like a night
light on this all the time.
Yeah, so that's like a little aside tip is salt lamps melt in Hawaii if you don't have them on all the time. The heat from the little bulb keeps them from melting. So I've had many a salt lamp just like melt when it just was on at night. And so my friend mentioned to me one time, hey, if you leave these on all the time, then they don't melt. And it's a tiny wattage bulb, and so I use it kind of just like a night light in my bathroom. And now it doesn't melt all over the counter.
Nice. Mine was melting, so I'm gonna try that.
Yes, try it. Yeah, make sure. So I made the mistake of putting an LED bulb in it. This was years ago, thinking I'm doing a good thing. But then the heat, that it doesn't have heat, right? It's not a heat-based light source. And so it melted. And so then I learned it has to be incandescent and it has to be on all the time in a high humidity environment. So
Cool.
Quick tip.
Okay, so you talk about healthy home goods. I'm very interested about what you have to say about this.
Yeah, healthy home goods is a category that I only sort of started researching when I needed a new mattress, and then I was like pretty appalled by what's in typical mattresses. I think in the last few years, it's become a lot better. I would say there's a lot more healthy mattress options now, as opposed to when I was looking maybe 5 years ago. So mattresses off gas pretty much throughout their entire lifetime. It's not something that like happens in the first few days and then, you're good to go. In fact, as they're used, the materials continue to break down, and some say even accelerate the off-gassing impact. And so a lot of these can be like things like formaldehyde, pretty toxic VOCs that no one really should be sleeping next to ever, much less 8 hours a night, every night. So I chose to go with avocado mattress. At the time, they were pretty new, but they do free shipping to Hawaii, which is where we live. But I believe they do free shipping everywhere, maybe in the continental US, in the US, I don't know, worldwide. So that was a big important thing, is just making sure you get a non-toxic mattress. If you're in the, market for a new mattress, it's not something that, everybody buys every year. So next time you need a new mattress, I think it's important to do some research. There's also another company called Spindle that I was considering. They don't do free shipping to Hawaii, but maybe, elsewhere they do. So that might be something to consider as well.
Things to look for in the mattress that make it like a healthier choice.
Yeah, good question. So a healthier choice would be something without foam. So a lot of times these mattresses contain foam, almost always. And so the foam is a lot of where the problem lies. And so the foam is, petroleum byproduct created foam. I don't really know the, exact chemical breakdown of it, but I do know that is where a lot of the VOCs come from. And then also flame retardants are another issue that they put on mattresses and clothing and furniture, unfortunately. But I know I asked Avocado, and they use a natural flame retardant that's, inert, supposedly. So you basically want to choose things that are inert, meaning like they do not break down or, evolve and change and off gas in any way. And so most of what the Avocado and Spindle are made of are wool, latex, cotton, organic cotton, and then the Avocado has coils, whereas Spindle I don't think does. And so, if you're sensitive to latex, that might be an issue. And then you might want to go just a wool mattress route. There's some Etsy sellers that sell just almost like wool futons, and so they don't have any coils, they don't have any latex. Home of Wool, we've bought some mattresses from them before for guest beds and stuff, and so yeah, that's a good option if you don't want latex or coils.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
And then the other thing on that is just in general having good air quality in your bedroom at night. So using maybe an air filter if you are air conditioning your room, meaning like it's closed at night. You want to just consider, you know, not just the mattress off gases, but like if you have cheap IKEA furniture, if you have things that have, poor quality vinyl flooring, for example, these are like notorious for off gassing. And while it may not seem that big of a deal for someone that has, you know, chronic disease state or, other sort of like chemical sensitivity, that it actually can be a compounding big deal, right? You know, like your bathtub is only, you only get so full before one extra thing pushes it over. So from that viewpoint, I think it's nice to filter the air in your bedroom at night. I use a company called Austin Air. They've been pretty overloaded with COVID. So, you know, I don't know how easy it is to get an air filter from them these days, but I really like them. They have a thing called a bedroom machine. So it's specifically made for a bedroom. And they did actually clinical trials around it to show improved sleep quality in their, in the experimental group, which I thought was pretty cool. And again, it comes back to sort of that idea of like a low EMF environment, a low light environment, a cool enough environment, like also a low toxin environment, you know. I think all of those things can just allow the body to do what it wants to do, which is to sleep deeply. One thing that we do have a lot of in Hawaii is mold. And so I found a lot of times when I see clients in their homes, we can kind of like unearth maybe some mold in like oftentimes their closets, you know, those don't get a lot of airflow, bathrooms, which are often next to the bedroom, sometimes even in the bedrooms. And so that's a huge deal. And so if that happens, you definitely want to remediate, but having an air filter is kind of like a little bit of an extra insurance policy for, you know, that issue, because it is so pervasive here and even on the mainland, it can be an issue as well.
With the mold?
Yeah, mold. Yeah, water damaged buildings are very common. And, you know, mold doesn't like airflow and it doesn't like sunshine. So if you can get as much sunshine and airflow into your room during the day, and then airflow at night is very important.
And you just run your air purifier at night?
Yeah, I do, because during the day I have my windows open. They're not open now because of, you know, road sound, but I pretty much always have my house open air as much as possible during the day. Again, from an air quality standpoint, most of the time the air quality outside the home is much healthier than the air quality in the home, just because of our products. And so airing out the home is actually a really critical thing to do for overall health. And especially now, you know, just like keeping the immune system high and strong, that is a really good practice. So I only use the air filter when the room is closed up, so it's like sealed, and then that makes sense. Then I can use the AC and the air filter at the same time.
Yeah, perfect. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, you talk about diet, which is eat gap, and then also like avoiding stimulants. So can you maybe touch on those two subjects?
Yeah, so the sleep eat gap is something that I figured out is really critical for myself, and that is not eating dinner too late. So, you know, by the time we make dinner, it's like oftentimes, you know, 8:30, you know, 7:30, something like that. And I tend to be going to bed around 9:30 every night, 9:30, 10. And so that's like pushing it for me on, you know, giving myself a 3-hour gap. And so the 3-hour gap is ideal, you know, if you can eat and be done eating by, you know, 3 hours before bed. That gives the body enough time to metabolize the food. Your heart rate isn't elevated. Your body temperature isn't elevated, because when you eat food, your body has to go through this whole process of metabolizing all the food, and you know, that takes a couple hours. So people that like eat a huge meal before bed, they go to bed. I know for me with my Aura Ring, it'll say like, you know, elevated heart rate, elevated, you know, body temp if I've eaten like a feast before bedtime. And so if I eat and like am done by, you know, early afternoon or even, you know, early evening or late afternoon, early evening. So sometimes I'm even done with dinner by like 5. That's when I get my like record breaking best sleep, actually. Yeah, so I would say like the early bird special, eat with the senior citizens, like, you know, go to the Pauhana specials. Like there's a reason that those are popular, and you know, it's not just the coupons or the discounted drinks. It's also much better for our health to not eat too late. I see this all the time with acid reflux.
Oh,
People will get acid reflux at night and they think it's the food they ate, or you know, like, and they're blaming the food but not what time they ate the food. And so oftentimes the first thing I'll have them do is to just shift whatever they're eating, usually dessert, to much earlier, you know, hopefully by, you know, at least 3 hours before they go to bed they finish the last bite. And same with alcohol, right? It's much better to day drink or early evening drink than drink in the evening.
right.
And for the same reason. And so oftentimes they'll say, oh, you know, I haven't had any acid reflux. And some of these people have been dealing with the acid reflux for years. You know, it's like really impacting their sleep, their life.
Yeah.
They're sleeping sitting up, and really it was just a timing issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because our bodies, I think the most active time for metabolism is midday. And so, you know, when the sun is up and all those, you know, blue rays are coming down, we're feeling very, you know, stimulated, energized. That's when our body's really meant to eat its biggest meal. But by the time, you know, the sun is starting to set and things, you know, that's actually our metabolism is starting to set as well. And so I like to use the sun as sort of a guideline. Like if it's dark out, probably shouldn't be eating, right? You know, and so to try and get in your eating window when the sun is out. You know, obviously if you're doing shift work that might be difficult, but for the general population I think that's a great rule. There's an amazing book called The Circadian Code by Dr. Santan Panda. I love his work, and that book really explains the benefits and the science of why this is the case, and talks about, you know, time restricted eating. Some people refer to that as intermittent fasting, and then also the eat sleep gap is mentioned.
Oh, cool. Okay,
Yeah.
last I want to ask you about your Aura ring.
Oh yeah. So you know, I'm glad you did, because oftentimes I forget to really talk too much about it. So I've used an Aura ring for, I don't know, maybe 4 years. I had the original model, and then they came out with a much more sleek version. So this is the sleek version. And you can kind of see maybe the electronics in there. So it has like these little sensors on the bottom and some sort of circuit boards at the top. Very cool. So I just wear it on my middle finger, and I wear it all the time. It's waterproof. You can shower with it. You can swim with it. So it tracks not only sleep, but also exercise, and readiness, meaning like, ooh, you're hungover, like don't go for the marathon today. Like it'll tell you like, take it, literally says, take it easy, like in the morning when you sync your ring. It's very cool. So as far as the sleep tracking goes, it's pretty neat. And it tells you like overall how long you've slept, how long you were in bed. So maybe you were in bed, you know, 8.5 hours, but you only slept 7.5 hours because, you know, waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. You know, there was an hour of wakeful time. And then it tracks REM sleep, deep sleep, light sleep, and awake time. And then it also tells you your body temperature, basal body temperature in the middle of the night, which is good to track, especially these days. You can tell way ahead of when you would be aware of it, that your body is starting to go into some sort of, you know, inflammatory state, like maybe you're starting to get a fever. Really fascinating. And then what else does it track? Heart rate variability, meaning how resilient you will be to a stressful event the next day. Let's see.
And do you have to tell it anything, or is it just tracking it through your body? Like, do you say
it just tracks it through your body? I mean, when you set up the app, I'm sure that I put in my like weight and height and gender. But yeah, it basically learns your body. I would say you have to give it like a couple weeks or a couple months to like get your baselines down. You know, it's not super helpful to just get like a week's worth of data. You like really want like I've done it for years. So now I like really know, you know, oh, I really hit like 2.5 hours of deep and 1.5 hours of REM on a good night. And if I don't hit that, I like get curious, like, what did I do yesterday? So I sync it in the morning, and it has an airplane mode. So no low to no EMFs at night. And so I just put it on airplane mode. And then the only time it comes off of that is when I sync it on the charger. I sync it to the phone. I find out how I slept the night before. I kind of take that information in and like immediately think about like, what did I do? Did I eat late? Like if I got a poor score, for example, did I eat late? Did I have alcohol? Did I work out too late? That's another one that I've noticed really impacts me because I'll get like too energized. Like I was playing tennis the other night till like 8:30 and I like slept terribly.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's so interesting. So I have to stop working out, you know, by probably like 7 to like be able to like calm my nervous system down. So yeah, I've really figured out a lot of things like the 3 hour eat sleep gap. I figured out because of the Aura Ring and seeing just really phenomenal scores versus like if I had to just like make a judgment on my own, it's super difficult. So yeah, Aura is OURA, Aura Ring. I don't remember their website, but it's probably aura.com or auraring.com. But they're a very cool company, and I've really benefited from their product. It's around, I think, $300. So it's not a super cheap item, but I have to say, like, the ROI on knowing the things that help me to get the best sleep, like, that's pretty priceless. Like, $300 for that kind of information is pretty hard to beat, in my opinion.
Yeah, with that data, and then you have it for like, you know, as long.
Yeah.
It does it have like a warranty or anything, or?
I don't know. I've had mine for a few years and haven't had any issues. My dad has one, and I think his battery died, and they replaced it. But I'd have to ask details on that. But yeah, so far mine's been great. It's been many years, so hopefully they last a while.
Cool, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been super helpful and informational, and I know a lot of people will get a lot out of this, especially right now with everyone's kind of struggling with sleep and anxiety and all these different topics. I'm going to list your website and how people can contact you below if they want to do a consultation or get any of your wonderful herbs that I've used as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm always excited to talk about sleep and all of my nerdy health hacks that I've figured out over the years. So I appreciate it.
Of course.